Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mayur Parulekar from DJ Samvi College of Engineering. Today's lecture is going to be about tree maps and pie charts. Both of these are basically used immensely in data analytics and also in day-to-day presentations. But majority of the times, we do not understand when do we need tree maps and when do we need pie charts. So the main objective of giving tree maps or pie charts is basically indicating parts of a whole thing. Okay, so which means that if I'm looking at my profit or sales categories in a particular region, and I want to give the client just a visual indication or a holistic view that I want to show you just how we are doing in all my particular categories. That is when we normally use something called as a tree map and something called as a pie chart. All right, so normally to describe hierarchy or to describe parts of whole, we normally use a tree map and we normally use a pie chart. Okay, so how do we build these particular tree maps, or what exactly are the categories that you use such that, or what are the dimensions or measures that you will need if you want to ever explain what is a tree map or what is a pie chart. Okay, now the rule of thumb in pie charts as well as in tree maps is the fact that you should always make sure that the color scheme as well as the number of gradation that you do is not too much, and you don't throw the client with too much of information. All right, this is just always remember, pie charts, tree maps, or your symbol maps are a very clear holistic view indication, and it should be as clean as possible. Okay, so let's start building a tree map at start. Okay, what I have in front of me is nothing but certain categories of dimensions and measures that you see in front of you, and what we require is basically, let us assume that this sheet is nothing but our data sheet of what exactly am I doing in different regions for certain categories, which are office supplies, furniture, or technology. And I have a presence, so I am a chain that is present in, let's say, multiple regions, and I want to know what is my profit or sales for that particular region, let's say. Okay, so I want to know how I'm faring in the east region or the west region, and how much profit I'm doing, how much sales I'm doing, and I want a holistic view of that first before I get into the numbers of it. Okay, now how do I build that? Let's have a look. So the first particular thing is, let's assume that I want first a holistic view, right? So I'm either going to look at my region or I'm going to look at my market. Okay, so I just want to show you what the region has. So the region has basically all of this: Africa, Canada, Caribbean, Central, and all of those particular aspects. And if you see your the next particular thing, which is your market, let me see if we can see market over here. Yeah, so can you see, if I place in market over here in rows, what I see will, what I'll be able to see is just three or four regions. Okay, so this APAC comprises of, let's say, Asia Pacific, all the countries in the Asia Pacific region. The EMEA comprises of the Europe and the Middle East. This comprises of Latin American countries, and this comprises of US and Canada. Okay, so as of right now, let us understand that because of the holistic view, this would be a better way to represent all my categories. Okay, now the most important thing when it comes to tree maps is the fact that no dimension or measure is actually added to the column. All right, so you create tree maps directly from this marks card. Okay, have a look at how I'm going to be proceeding. So I'm taking market and I place market on color, and what I see is basically four colors, and these four colors are represented as Asia Pacific, Europe and Middle East, Latin America, and USA. Okay, now what do I want to see? I want to see how much sales or how much profit I'm doing in each of these regions, right? So let's assume that I would want to see the sales in these particular regions, and I want the tree map hierarchy to be such that from the right hand side corner to left hand side corner, it is of a decreasing value. Okay, so I'll show you how this can be done. So pick up sales and place it on size. The moment you do that, now remember that of course you can change the colors and all of that out of here. As of right now, I just want you to understand that the size of the box or the size indicates how much is the contribution of that particular region to the whole. All right. So when I say parts of the whole, it means that this is one part of this whole, this is the second part, this is the third part, and this is the fourth part of the whole. All right. Now over here I am seeing that okay, the categorization has been done on sales, but I don't see anything that is representing what exactly this is trying to tell me, right? So the first particular thing that I need to do is give it some amount of detailing. Now what is the detailing? I see that I have market and I have sales. All right. So the first thing that I would want to do is take that market and place it on the label. And now you should see that, okay, this is what this represents. Okay. The next particular thing, let us assume that the first particular aspect is what do I want to tell the client? So I want to tell the client how much sales you're doing in each particular market, right? Now sales of what? The categories that I have. All right. So let me just show you that the categories in question. Okay. So let me take category to detail, and when I place category to detail, if you see now that it has clustered it into three regions. Okay. Now when I get this on the categories on the label, you'll understand what are the three categories which we've been working in our prior sheets. All right. So I'm just pushing category on label, and you can see now that over here, as I mentioned to you, the technology is the highest contributor. Okay. And then would be office supplies, and then is furniture in this particular region of EMEA. All right. In the second particular region of USCA, if you would see, the technology corresponds to the highest, then is your furniture, and then is your office supplies out over here. All right. Similar for technology, office supplies, and furniture in your APAC region, and similarly in the Latin America region. All right. So you read this chart from this particular thing to this corner over here. Similarly from here to here, from here to here, and from here to here. Okay. Now that we've understood this, we need to also push in the values that we are getting, because the size gradation actually depends on the values, right? So I'm going to take this sum of sales, okay, and place it on the label just to give a visual indication of what are the sales that we have done in each of these particular regions. Okay. Now, so I've understood that, okay, for this particular region, for technology, I've done this sales, for furniture I've done these sales, and for this I've done these sales. Okay. Now along with that, let us assume that I also wanted to know what is the profit ratio. So you can just take profit ratio, place it on labels, and it will also give you your profit ratio. Now remember that this profit ratio is a field that I have created. It was not present as such in the measures field. Okay. So if you'll see over here, discount, profit, quantity, sales, all of these are actually present in your data set. However, this profit ratio was not in your data set. So I created a calculated field. Okay. And this calculated field, if you see over here, all right, so this aggregation is a manual aggregation that has been done. And I'll show you what is the calculation that went ahead over here. All right. So I'm just going to do a right click and I'm editing that calculation. Now, if you see over here, I've taken profit ratio as what? Sum of profit by sum of sales. Okay. Now, if you do a profit by sales, okay, so ideally, if somebody thinks that, profit ratio is nothing but profit by sales, and then, you create that field and you try to get that over here into the marks card or in the columns or label, what Tableau does is Tableau does a sum of profit by sales. Okay. And that is your aggregation. Now that aggregation will always work row wise. Now when it works row wise, what happens is that if you have 5 in one column and 10 in the second column, so your profit is, let's say, 5 and your sales is 10. All right. So you have a profit ratio of 50%. Okay. For the first row. Now in the second row, similarly, you would have 70%, 60%. What Tableau actually does is that if you do not do the EGG out over here, right? So the manual aggregation, the profit by sales works on row wise, and because of which at the end of it, it will basically add up all your 50% plus 60% plus 70%, all of these values, and give you an extremely absurd number. All right. So you need to make sure that you always do an aggregation on each of the measure. So over here, that's why instead of sum of the whole parenthesis profit by sales, what have I done? I've done a sum of profit by a sum of sales. and this particular field is what is my profit ratio. Okay, now remember that if you drag this profit ratio directly, what you would get was a 0.1186. Okay, so what I have done is, instead of that, so you can either multiply that calculation by 100, or what you can also do is change the default properties of this using number format and keep it to percentage. Okay, if you keep it to percentage, what's going to happen is it will directly give you this percentage values. Okay, now remember that you can add granularity to this particular data, which means if you realize that technology in itself would have multiple different things, right? So if you want to add granularity to the particular tree map, remember this is not advisable, but if you still would want to do it, this is how you can add granularity. So I'm going to take a subcategory and I'm going to do a detail on this. And now if you see, the technology has been further broken into, if you see the tooltip, all right, so the tooltip is clearly mentioning that in EMEA, the first particular thing is phones in technology. The second one is copiers. The third one is machines. The fourth one is accessories. Okay. Similarly, in office supply. So if you see, this is the highest of the whole, and this is the lowest of the whole. Now, the reason why I was suggesting that you do not use the granularity more and more, because if you see that over here, these fields seem to have missing values. The reason is that Tableau does not overlap any labels. All right, so it will just leave the particular space as blank. But the moment you hover above the particular space, you will always get what exactly that particular block stands for. Okay, so the tree map can give you a holistic view, as well as the tree map can give you a granular view. It completely depends on you how much depth of the particular part of the whole you want to show to your client. Okay, so this is nothing but how a tree map actually is brought into the view. Okay, the next particular thing, so once we've understood what is a tree map, the second way of doing a particular part of the whole is nothing but also what we call as our pie charts. Okay, so in order to make a pie chart is very simple out over here. You go to the marks card, okay, and just click pie over here. The moment you do pie over here, you will see this particular extra mark being created called as angle. So the first thing that it does ask you is, what exactly do you want as your field of separation? All right, so let us assume that I want to separate this on the profit ratio, okay, or the profit of my entire category, or my profit ratio. All right, so let me just take profit ratio and place it on the angle. Okay, it will give me a full scale aggregation, because as of right now I've not added any dimension to it. Okay, now the moment I add a dimension to it, so I'm going to add one dimension to color and check what happens. Okay, so let me just make this as entire view, and now I see that okay, I have got four particular markers, 1, 2, 3 and 4, which are corresponding to different regions. Okay, now I want to know what are these markets out over here itself. So let me just even make sure that that is seen in the details. So I'm going to give this a label. Okay, and similarly, because I've taken the profit ratio, let me drop that also on the label. So taking profit ratio and dropping it on the label. Okay, so now this is a very clean pie chart. Okay, you would want to also include something else, that you would want to see in pie charts, like if you want to see country wise or something like city wise. The only problem is, remember that it will get too cluttered. All right, so which means that I'll show you that particular thing also. But have a look at, if I wanted to get this in this particular pane, what would I have to do? So I just double click over here, get it in the center. Okay, right click on this and just do a format, and you can change this worksheet value to, let's say, 10, and keep this as, let's say, white. This now is seen over here for USCA. So the same thing if you apply it for all the others. All right, so I'm going to just make sure that I see that again. All right, so I'm going to drag and drop everything onto the center. So drag and drop, all right. And now let's say I want to format this somewhere. All I need to do is just make sure that this is, let's say, white, and let's say this is bold, and let's keep this out over here. Now if you see, a similar formatting gets applied to everyone. All right, so this is a good way to represent a chart of how much profit ratio each particular region is doing. All right, particular thing, if you realize, if I had changed, so let me just change from the market to, let's assume that if I was doing this for a country, right? And if you can see, this will not give you any particular insight as to what's going to happen, right? So it's just a color collage that is going to be in front of you. So ideally the thumb rule is never cross more than 5 or 7 attributes when you're designing a pie chart. So this ideally would be the best possible holistic view of all your markets. The maximum that you can, granularity wise, you can go to the region and possibly place region out over here, and that should, you know, somewhat be okay. I mean, have a look, and it's still not that great, all right, but it's definitely manageable. But I would definitely not recommend this again, right? So ideally a pie chart should be as clean as this, or possibly 1 or 2 more attributes should be maximum. Okay, so this is how you create a pie chart and a tree map, both of which are nothing but parts of the whole. Okay, thank you very much. This is for the end of the lecture. This is Mayur Parolekar from DJ Sangvi College of Engineering.